Hello. Welcome to the live stream for August 1st, 2018. I am your host, Dana Morningstar. This is a live stream we do every Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you are new here, welcome. If you are returning, welcome. So let me scroll down, look at the chat here. Andrew is here, welcome. Up yours, Narc. Leslie, hooray. Super Nin, Eileen, welcome, welcome. How's everybody's week going? What is new and exciting? See Finn, Ileana. You might have noticed that I've been putting up some shorter videos this week. So I'm trying a different format. I don't know if you guys have seen those or like if you like them, if you don't like them. I guess let me know if that's, I know these live streams are super long and 3 hours is a lot for anybody to sit through. And so I'm trying to chop these up into shorter videos. I don't know. We're just going to try something new. Kayla, cool, says, hello. I found you about 3 weeks ago and you have helped me so much. Thank you. You are so very welcome. I'm so glad. And if this is your first live stream, then I hope that you're going to really enjoy this. There's a lot of people here in the chat and that also help to answer questions and give their own feedback. And it's just a really kind of a cool time that we have every week. Silent figure, welcome. Eileen asks, she says, I love the new videos. How was the birthday cake last night? Birthday cake was good. Chocolate cake, which is always delicious. Hard to believe. Time flies. My brother called me and he's like, man, happy birthday. And I'm like, oh, yeah, thanks, man. He's like, God, it's so crazy to think how old we're getting. I was like, couldn't we have saved this conversation for your birthday? But yeah, it is weird. It's weird to think about because in my mind, I feel like I'm significantly younger than I am. And I think of him as my kid brother. And in my mind, we're still like a lot younger. It's just a weird, I don't know why that is. C. Rob says this is her first evening live stream, but can only sit in for a short time. Well, good deal and welcome. So we are glad you are here, even though it might just be for a short time. Andrew says this past week, he's been having lots of dreams about his ex narcissist. Even though she's been terrible and exhibiting narcissistic behaviors in the dreams, I still miss her. And that's normal. It really is. I think it just, takes a while for your brain to process all of this. And it takes, I think, even longer for your heart to catch up with your head. It's not easy doing what we know we need to do sometimes. And that is to stay away and, move forward and heal. So, okay, let's see. Let me scroll up here. Kamami says, hello from France. I didn't forget to put my alarm clock on. It is now 2:30 in the morning. Good deal. Welcome. Welcome, welcome. Angie, I don't know if you guys caught our live stream from Tuesday, but let me see if I can move my microphone over. I don't know why I haven't done this to begin with. Hold on a second. Because I talk in this direction. So that makes sense that the microphone would also be in that direction. Anyways, Angie was saying, I'd mentioned yesterday in her live stream about the show True Blood. I don't know if you caught her live stream. We were talking about all kinds of stuff yesterday. We just got all kinds of we got all kinds of random ground covered over on her channel. And we were talking about vampires and all kinds of stuff. And she had mentioned the show True Blood. I had never seen it before. And so I've been binge watching it. I think I've seen, I don't even know, most of season 1 since Tuesday. So yeah, I guess since yesterday. My gosh, time flies. It's a good show, I have to say. Really interesting premise for a show. Nora's mom is here. Eric says, okay, I just discovered your videos 2 days ago. I've been in and out of relationships with women that have over half of the characteristics. I have been so confused at what I was seeing until now. Yeah, I'll tell you too, Eric, most of the people that come to channels like this one, it tends to be that one relationship in their life where they're like, man, I don't know, like you're Googling somebody's behavior, you're trying to make sense out of things, you're confused, you're like, is it me, is it them? Like, what's going on? And then over time, people start realizing, oh my goodness, actually, I know quite a few people that have a lot of these different types of behaviors. And it's sort of like your eyes start to open to what problematic behavior is. And that's its own level of crazy making. But it's also, in a way, that kind of clarity can really help to set a person free. Because you can start seeing it with people at work. You can start seeing it with friends of yours, people that you've known in the past. It's just so eye-opening. So that's just kind of a stage, I think, in healing and understanding of all of this kind of stuff. But yeah, once you start having the vocabulary for what's been going on and you understand manipulation and maybe even some more of like the common things like projection, triangulation, baiting. Yeah, I guess gaslighting, what emotional abuse really is. Because I think so many of us were so used to thinking about abuse in terms of very like, overt terms, like name calling, screaming, yelling, hitting, kicking, pushing, that kind of stuff. But if that's not present, and in our mind, we're only thinking like, okay, it's only a problem if it's really extreme like that. But then it might be something that's more subtle, like, a person that's continually kind of triangulating you with their ex, or always trying to, poke at your buttons. It's called needling, like needling you until you explode, or setting up these conversations that just are circular and they just go nowhere, and it's absolutely exhausting. Like that kind of stuff. Like once you understand, okay, there's terminology for it, it really does go a long way to help get rid of that confusion. Okay. Steffi asks, hey Dana, have you heard about a narcissist who only wants to hear positive things and essentially ignores any negative reality? I think that's all of them. Are we talking about any like things about them? Because most narcissists, most people in general feel justified and entitled to act the way that they do. We're all wired to have our thoughts and actions line up. And so anytime that we're acting in a way where our thoughts and actions don't line up, that causes us a lot of mental distress. That's known as cognitive dissonance. With narcissists, where that kind of basic programming that we all have works fine to a point. But with narcissists and immature and kind of problematic people in general, where that kind of stuff really becomes dangerous and just delusional, is when they start rewriting reality to fit their existing beliefs, no matter how, and they perform all kinds of mental gymnastics to get reality to fit their inner picture of the world. And you can show them proof and they just will not see it all day long. And they'll argue about it and it's just exhausting. Doris says, I never thought a narcissist could take me down the way my ex did. It took a year to rise above, and I know my self-worth. Yeah, it's amazing how the damage. And that's the thing, like nobody thinks, oh, I'm going to go get in an emotionally abusive relationship, or I'm going to go join a cult, or I'm going to go get taken in by an online scammer. Like nobody ever thinks that'll happen. And that's in part, I think, a big reason people tend to get caught up in this stuff is because that's the thing, like nobody consciously gets involved in this kind of stuff. We all think we would see it coming, and we don't. At least I should say, once we've been through it a few times, sometimes maybe all it takes is once, but sometimes, at least if we've gone through it and we understand that not everybody is like us, that love and compassion and therapy and religion and rehab doesn't solve, and communication doesn't solve everything. Like sometimes we need to improve the communication we have with ourselves about what's actually going on. Like that's what sets us free, not trying to fix them or communicate more effectively with them. So once we've been around the block with the narcissist once or twice, then we're so much more aware of kind of just the different types of people in the world, and can be better prepared for it. We can see it coming, but that also has its own level of crazy making, because other people who haven't experienced this don't see it coming. They're still in that mentality of, oh, that would never happen to me. It's that, there's a name for this. Irrational invincibility is the name. And it's so true. Like, because it's stuff that happens to other people. That's the stuff that happens to people on the news, right? Or people that live far away, or not people that I know, not me. Like, I'm smart. I would never put up with that. Nobody thinks that they would tolerate being treated poorly until it happens, because it's the slow erosion of a person's boundaries, and they hook into your vulnerabilities, and it's just slowly being dragged off the path. And we're continually justifying it. Oh, they had a bad childhood. They had a bad day. They were stressed out. Maybe it's me. Maybe, especially people that think, oh, well, relationships take work, right? It takes two to tango. And, who am I to judge? And so I just need to try harder to be a better partner, to be more compassionate, to be more understanding. And then that gets us walking on eggshells, trying to keep the peace in order to try to kind of placate their behavior. And that doesn't work, because like you're trying to kind of keep pace with somebody who's continually rewriting reality, and they have this unhealthy ego. They're getting triggered right and left, and nobody's ever going to match up to. They're going to grind every single person down, because they're just, if a person's not happy and healthy and well adjusted within themselves, they're going to continually need to grind everybody else down. And that's really what you're dealing with. So it's not you, it's them. But yeah, it's amazing just the damage narcissists can do in a person's life. Gabriel asks, he says, I struggle with narcissism. Can it be reversed? Compulsivity. He says, I never own my behavior. I cheated compulsively. I gaslit her. Here's the thing, is it's some of this behavior is within the realm of like that's a normal problematic behavior. Okay. So like there's lots of people that are not full out narcissists, that cheat, that lie, that gaslight, that project, that, have a lot of these kind of behaviors. The difference is if you're aware of your behavior, because all of our behavior is designed to meet some sort of need that we have. So if you've had some sort of behavior, if it's problematic and you're like, yeah, now I see, like, this was a problem. At that point in my life, I was incredibly impulsive. I had low self-esteem. I was trying to prove something. I was afraid of commitment. Whatever you feel it was driving your behavior. If you're at the point now where you're fully, sincerely accountable for that, and you're wanting to really dig in and do some self reflection, and like, why was I doing that? And am I ready to not do that? Then yeah, I mean, I believe change is possible for a person, but they have to actually sincerely want to change. And the hard thing with changing that kind of problematic behavior is uh, that it's, like I said, it's meeting some sort of need. So it's not even the behavior itself, even though that's incredibly problematic. It's why you were doing what you were doing. People gaslight because they're not comfortable with the truth, right? They deny a person's reality. Often, it depends. I guess I should back up. It depends on what kind of gaslighting they were doing. If they get caught cheating, right, and your partner shows you a bunch of texts and says, "I know you've been cheating. Like, who is this woman?" And you're like, "I don't know what you're talking about. That's she's just a friend." That, that kind of level of gaslighting. People do that because they don't want to admit the truth, because they don't want to suffer consequences from it. If we're talking gaslighting, like sabotaging another person, like moving things around, then denying it with that more like malicious intent, um, that's kind of a different level kind of a thing. But um, I don't know. I would encourage you to get honest with yourself about why you were doing what you were doing, and go from there. Okay, let's see. New Chris says, "I'm short on empathy and understanding. It just wasn't modeled for me as a kid." Yeah, I think that's a lot of people. And um but I think, having understanding, I think what helps is to have a direction of where you're wanting to head. So if we kind of know, okay, this is, I don't know if you were in that conversation. Oh, it was yesterday on Angie's channel. We were talking about the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And that title sounds very manipulative, but I think honestly, it's a great book on how to have empathy, how to effectively relate to other people. I think that's a really great starting place. There might even be videos based on it on YouTube, because it's such an old book. But I think that can be a good direction to kind of steer into. Or even if a person's struggling with really like having empathy, and kind of what that looks like in motion, understanding healthy love, um, kind of you can even start with what it's not. So kind of what you've experienced, I would say, healthy love is based in deep appreciation for the other person. It includes open, honest, sincere, solutions oriented communication. It uh, involves respect, dignity, and respect for the other person and for yourself. It involves kind of a more mature way of handling your emotions, and being clear with the other person of how kind of the ground rules for how we're going to disagree. Disagreements are going to happen, right? And it's a part of a normal, healthy relationship. It's how they're handled, which makes all the difference. So, is there, like, it's okay to be angry, but it's not okay to like try to destroy the other person with words or with actions. Um, just feeling that level of safety, that the other person's emotionally safe, kind of making it intentionally going about creating an emotionally safe place for somebody else to open up and to share. And there's that level of like healthy trust that's been built over time, those kinds of things. Gabriel said, okay, I'm confused, Gabriel. He says, um, And he had cheated on his ex, but now he feels awful about it. He says, but what scares me is that my ex and I are now back together and we have a child. I feel like my ex damaged me through her narcissism. So now I feel like karma is coming for me. Can you elaborate on that? Why would karma be coming for you? So you cheated on her. What kind of stuff was she doing that what are you calling narcissism on her part? And why do you think, and you think the karma is coming for you because you cheated? Is that right? I'm going to keep my eyes open for your response. Jay McLaughlin. Oh, wow. He says, I justified 20 years. Please, men, listen. Oh, please, men, listen to this lady. I found my most religious wife having affairs, and she hides it behind her Christianity. Oh, wow. Yeah, that kind of stuff is, I think it's can be so incredibly painful. Not only is it 20 years, but it's also, if you're also Christian and you've got a person that's kind of been hiding their bad behavior behind God, I think a lot of people then tend to get very upset with God. They get angry at their faith. And that can just do a tremendous amount of destruction in a person's life on so many levels. And I'm so, that's a lot to go through. That's, my goodness, I'm so sorry. 20 years is a long time. Okay. Sure, Lauren, that is a great question. Says, can you talk about codependent personality versus borderline personality disorder? Sure. There's some similarities, but some really key differences there. So codependent people, and I think it's one of those, there's not a real like set definition. It's one of these terms. It's such a powerful concept, and yet it's not official. It's not in the DSM. It's been kind of left on its own. It's kind of fallen between the cracks over the decades. And it's kind of, so depending on who you ask, you're going to get a different answer about kind of what codependency really is. I think I like to think of it in a nutshell that it's where a person is looking for somebody else to complete them. It's this idea of, that a relationship somehow makes us whole, that we're two halves walking around, becoming one, and that we're really looking outside of ourselves for that validation, that love, that sense of completeness. And codependent, where's my book? Hold on a second. Just working on my audiobook version the other day, and so I was just reading this out loud. And let me read some out of here for what I had for codependency. COD, it's all alphabetized. Okay, so I guess real quick, with the concept with codependency too, just for new people that might be here, not every person that gets taken in by a narcissist is codependent. However, I think there's a lot to be kind of gleaned or gotten from understanding different key concepts in codependency. So even if you guys don't identify as being codependent, I still think that there is a lot of value that we can squeeze out of this concept. If you have a pattern of these people, of narcissists and problematic people in your life, and you have a pattern of relating to them, then I think, definitely kind of keep your ears open, because I think there's some stuff we can squeeze out of this. I had mentioned in my book, because using the term, you're codependent, that can feel very victim blaming. Like, oh, well, this happened because you were codependent, which that's not the case. Like, it doesn't excuse somebody else's abusive behavior. I think it can help to view behavior on a spectrum of like overtaking and overgiving. And codependent people tend to be way overgiving. We tend to be like, it's all about you at the expense of me, or it's all about you. I don't, not even at the expense of me. There is no me. Like I'll just be in the corner, right? Like that kind of thing. And that's a problem, because then a person doesn't have their own identity, that they're so out of tune with like their wants, their needs, their thoughts, their feelings. Um, Putting everybody else ahead. And Pia Melody talks about this. I agree completely that really left untreated, codependency can lead to death. It can lead to suicide, addiction, all kinds of things. Because if we're looking for ourselves in another person and those people leave, or they are abusive to us, or we're trying to grind down any of our inner self that is trying to surface in order to keep them around, then it's a very like profoundly lonely and difficult way to live. So I think Pia Melody is just right on about that. Let's see. Some common feelings and actions that overgivers or codependent people tend to have: continually making justifications for being treated in an emotionally or physically harmful way, trouble telling the difference between a healthy relationship and a dysfunctional one, feeling resentful at having to be the one to continually fix the relationship after being lied to, cheated on, stolen from, or used in some way, manipulated, or from the other person being controlling and or abusive, feeling like a parent, teacher, caregiver, or therapist to others, especially their spouse. The main point with that, feeling like a parent, teacher, caregiver, or therapist, it's a one-sided dynamic is what I was getting at there. There's an unequal balance of power where we're looking to help or fix somebody else. Trouble saying no or setting and enforcing boundaries with others. Difficulty being assertive and instead either being passive aggressive, or aggressive. Staying in friendships, jobs, or relationships that are toxic, draining, or one-sided until the situation becomes unbearable. Feeling guilty for setting boundaries and saying yes when we mean no. Feeling guilty for cutting off contact with controlling, crazy-making, destructive, disempowering, dangerous, or overall difficult people. Continually thinking that other people are kind, compassionate, considerate, faithful, or loyal at their core, or have the capacity to be like that, given enough love, rehab, therapy, time, understanding, instead of seeing other people's behavior for what it is. Not setting a line in the sand when it comes to the actions of others, or thinking that everything is fixable and workable and that improved communication solves everything. Continually trusting people who are untrustworthy and who have a pattern of lying or cheating. Let's see here. There was codependent behavior also tends to fall under like caretaking. It can be controlling. When people talk about codependent behavior being controlling, what they're really talking about is that codependent, like I need to fix you. I need to fix you and make sure that you're okay because I'm having anxiety because I need this relationship to work out because it completes me. So like if you're so problematic and I can't fix you, then that means I'm going to be alone and I can't do that. So that's kind of codependency. Let me go down to borderline personality disorder. Let's see if I have some features listed out here. Tends to be, okay, here we go. Really like emotional dysregulation, unstable, have a poor self-image, impulsive and risky behavior, poor emotional control. They're often very quick to kind of have very highly emotional reactions to things. They jump to suicide very quickly or threatening suicide very quickly. Just, I think poor emotional regulation would be probably the main one. A history of unstable, short-lived relationships. There's a lot of overlap there. And I will be curious to see kind of what's going to happen in the mental health community in like the next 10 or 15 years with the understanding of borderline personality disorder, I really think that just from what I have seen, I think that it's more, um, I think it goes hand in hand with trauma. Most personality disorders do, but I would say borderline personality disorder tends to really go hand in hand with like PTSD, and there's a lot of like codependency stuff that tends to be going on there. Um, so I hope that that kind of clears some stuff up. It's very common for people when they get out of a relationship with an emotional manipulator of any kind to then be diagnosed as borderline personality disorder for all of the reasons we just mentioned. I mean, unstable self-image, check. Um, complete emotional dysregulation, check. They're just, you know, easily triggered. Um, Lots of what would also be PTSD or CPTSD type symptoms that overlap. And so if a clinician is seeing that person for perhaps the first time ever, and they're seeing this person who's coming across as like anxious, depressed, unhinged, they've been in and out of relationships, they don't know how to keep themselves safe, they have trouble kind of regulating their emotions, all of this stuff, it's like, yeah, okay, borderline. But I just, I think if you can treat the trauma, and then there is this therapy called dialectical behavioral therapy, which is actually the book club book for next month. I still need to change that on my website. We're reading a book, I forget the title, I'll put it on my website tomorrow, reading a book on DBT. For this month. It's August. So anyways, DBT is a fantastic therapy. It's mindfulness based. It helps with emotional regulation. I think it's something that everybody could benefit from. And, I'm a big fan of like addressing the trauma and then kind of seeing what else is there that a person might need to look into. Let's see. Jen says this is her first live stream. Welcome. Nora's mom says, are vulnerabilities the same as empty buckets? Yeah. I mean, pretty much. In my way of describing things, yeah. The empty buckets concept is just kind of like a simpler concept. So, we have kind of the emotional needs bucket, the buckets of, you have your kind of Maslow's pyramid. If you take that and you put it into buckets. So if you have like your physical needs, your emotional needs, your kind of psychological or self-esteem type needs. And then if those needs aren't met, then a person is going to be kind of continually spinning at the bottom, whatever level they're stuck on. They're going to just be going in a circle, trying to get those needs met, trying to get those needs met, trying to get those needs met. They're not going to continue to advance. And it's amazing how quickly this stuff can happen. We can be climbing up that pyramid and doing great, and then something major happens. We lose a job, or we have a person that's, a child, oh gosh, God forbid, a significant other or a person in our life die, right? And then a person's back down on that level of the pyramid, trying to basically fill that empty bucket and kind of nurse those wounds, especially if it's a death of somebody close to us. But if a person's gone through a divorce, if they're new to town, if those buckets were never filled to begin with, if a person did grow up in a home where there was any type of like abuse or neglect of any kind, then that person might not have ever had those buckets filled. And so they're trying to get them filled in the best way they can as an adult, but that may or may not be done in a constructive way. So the book we read last book club, I don't know if you guys saw that, or, how many of you guys were there for that video, or if you saw it or not, but it was the Pia Melody book called The Intimacy Factor. I love that book. It is so flippin' fantastic. And I just it's kind of a heavy read. It's one of those books, I think had I read it 5 years ago, I would have been like, I don't even know what you're saying. Like, you're just saying a bunch of words. It sounded a lot like a bunch of psychobabble, but it's not. So if you can kind of slowly work through, it's a very packed language, and kind of very clinical language, but if you can take the time to unpack it, I have my notes on my website. If you want to start there, thriveafterabuse.com, go under book club and you'll see my notes on that book. It's just, I love Pia Melody. Like, her work is fantastic. One of the concepts that she has in there that's kind of related to the empty buckets is basically how we go about getting these needs met or coping with how we didn't get them met. And she had said, there's basically 3 people living inside of us. We have our wounded child, which honestly, I think what we call the wounded child, I think it can just be the wounded self, because I think we can become wounded at any age. But you have the wounded child, you have the adapted wounded child. So that wound happens, and then we adapt. We'd figure out some sort of way to cope with that wound. And then we have the functional adult. But again, like I said, I think these 3 selves can happen at any age. So we can have that wounded person. So let's say, for example, you find out your partner is cheating on you, right? Like you've got this wounding that happens. We might start adapting to it by drinking, hoarding, spending too much money, becoming promiscuous, trying to prove something, trying to prove our worth. We might gain a bunch of weight or lose a bunch of weight or work too much or do all kinds of things to try to adapt and cope with that original wound. But then that functional adult is kind of the voice of reason in all of this and can see the adapted wounded child can see a lot of that stuff for what it is. So it's interesting when you think about, your own behavior that way of like, oh my God, because then it's like, yeah, okay, I get it. Like I see it. It's interesting. Okay. Yes, it's Manju's Life says, my abuser had bipolar disorder, but had so many narcissistic traits that I can sit with a victim of narcissistic abuse and agree to the same feelings as a victim of narcissistic abuse. Yeah, it's interesting how the brain works like that, because there are a lot of features of bipolar that overlap, especially when a person's manic and they're not doing well. Especially grandiosity is a big one. The impulsivity, the extreme, obviously, extreme moods, the kind of just lack of judgment. It's really scary what untreated bipolar can do. So, but yeah, lots of very similar behaviors. There's not necessarily that component of like control, the power and control that narcissists tend to have. And it can be hard to kind of separate. Okay, like, are we talking? And I would, for any mental health clinician, that's the challenge of, okay, here's this person. Like, okay, what am I seeing? Is this addiction? And if so, what kind? Because people that struggle with addiction oftentimes are not fully truthful. So, is that part of the puzzle? And if so, how big of a piece? And is it mental illness? And is it a personality disorder? Is it all 3? Is it a brain injury? Like, what is going on here? Is it trauma? Is it PTSD? What's going on here? And so it can take a while to kind of figure out, because a person can have all 3. They can have a personality disorder and a mental illness, and what was I saying? Personality disorder. Oh, and PTSD and, and like people can have multiple things wrong with them. So yeah, it's a problem, and it's a problem. Yes. Nora's mom says, yes, Dana, I was in a loveless marriage. I got divorced. 6 months later, I met my now ex narcissist. He love bombed me and fed into my empty buckets of loneliness and neediness. Yes. And so that can be a huge aha moment of, okay, why were we attracted to this person? And this in itself can feel really victim blaming. I probably would have like full out attacked another person had they said this to me back when I was fresh out of my situation. It took me a couple years at least to fully, actually it took me going through this very similar type of relationship twice in order to realize, okay, this wasn't just a fluke thing. Like there's something that I'm missing here. Now there's a pattern. So what am I missing? And then the realization of, okay, this is why, like I was grossly misreading this whole situation. And I was misinterpreting that intensity for sincerity and love bombing for love. And I was just misreading a lot of signals that just was not even on my radar of stuff to watch out for. And so that's why I kept getting caught up with it. And so now that I know different, I do different, and I can see that stuff a mile away, and it doesn't have the pull that it once had. You know, it's there at a minimum, there's no like waffling if that were to happen. I mean, I've been dating somebody for a couple of years now, but like there's no, you know, like I don't know, I've been able to slow things down, even with friends, like new people in my life in general, to slow things way, way down to where, because I had the same issue with a handful of like pretty significant people in my life and friends too. And I was like, again, like what, you know, does that make me a narcissist? I was so confused back then. Like, so these people basically make me feel so loved and important, and I kept falling for it. So that was one of the many questions I had. I'm like, oh my goodness, does this make me a narcissist? Like, you know, what kind of unhealthy ego like would fall for that kind of stuff? And there was just a wide mix of emotions, like shame, embarrassment, you know, how could I have fallen for this? Like it just kicks up so much stuff, self-esteem issues, all kinds of stuff with the aftermath of these relationships. But yes, this is why it's important that we do examine our vulnerabilities, because if that is your vulnerability, if like, you know what, yeah, I've walked around feeling really unloved for a very long time or unimportant, and this person made me feel loved and important, that's how they got under my radar. It's important that we see that, because if we don't see it, we're going to continue falling for that love bombing time and time and time again, until we realize moving that quick is never a good idea. But also that love bombing, it's always problematic. It's a sign that they're not seeing us clearly at a minimum, assuming it's even remotely sincere, which generally it's not. It's a sign of the idealized stage. So it's just important to everybody go slow. Okay. You know, Manju says, it's crazy how codependents can find such broken people, narcissists, borderline, bipolar, etc. You know why I think that is? Because I used to, well, not used to, like, I think about this stuff often, is why is that? And I think at least one of the reasons that is, well, I think in part, at some point down the road, we learned that's how we go about getting love, right? Like maybe that's your role in the family. My role is the peacemaker. My role is, I learned at a young age, like, okay, if I can just be complacent or ingratiating, then, and just keep the peace, then I'll be loved. So maybe that was one message that somebody picked up, or maybe it was, I think, and also in part, it's easier to focus on, it's easier to see other issues in other people for sure, right? But it's also easier for us to not deal with our own stuff and be like, well, I'll just focus on fixing them. And maybe even relating to their pain. Like we see them kind of as this baby bird with a broken wing, right? They need somebody to help. And we do too, right? But we're so out of tune with our own wants and needs and we're so used to putting ourselves last and everybody else first. It's sort of like, it's easier for me to be in tune with what you need and how I can help than it is for me to actually turn inward and examine what I need. And that's a weird realization. It's weird. And it's weird that we don't even realize when we're being treated poorly. And it's weird that we're so out of tune with our wants and needs. That's so weird, because we walk around in this body, right? Like all day, every day. You would think that we would have more insight like into what's going on. And especially because I think so many of us consider ourselves to be fairly insightful and very in tune with other people's emotions. And yet what a disconnect, like how we're so out of tune with our own selves. It's really wild when you really start thinking about it. Okay, let's see. Ooh, that sounds like a good book, Kevin. Kevin mentions the book, How to Break Any Bad Habit Quickly, Eating Junk Food, Procrastinating, and Binge Eating. I need to write that down. That sounds like something I would be all about. I need a pen. What? I need my jar of pens. They're still cleaning them from the fire we had. Okay, here's a pen, but it's not the pen I kind of like. Let's see, but that's okay. How to Break Any Bad Habit Quickly. Any bad habit quickly. Check that out. Yeah, Know Thyself says everyone's parents don't teach them how to love and protect themselves. I wish they taught it in school. I would agree. I would agree completely. And I think, for so long, it's this whole idea of like, oh, people that come from healthy homes, they don't get tangled up with emotional manipulators. And I used to subscribe to that point of view as well. I don't anymore. I really think that anybody, unless this kind of stuff is spelled out for them, this stuff is not intuitive. And even if they've had it role modeled, I think most people, just from being a nurse, like I have found you can be very specific with people and it's amazing. You can see those gears spinning behind their eyes of all the different ways they're going to misinterpret what you're saying. And that was one thing I learned as a nurse, to really spell out, like, just to be on the safe side. Like if you are thinking, like, here's an example, like with sulfa drugs, right? People, you kind of know, okay, you might think that you're just going to take this drug until you feel better, and then you're going to keep it around. Don't do that. Like, you need to take the full prescription. Don't keep this medication in your cabinet thinking like, oh, well, I'm going to stop it when I feel better, and then I'll just keep some on hand if I feel sick down the road, maybe a year or 5 years later, because that sulfa drugs can kill you. They get more potent over time. So like really spelling it out for people helps, because it's amazing all of the different ways that we can all kind of interpret information. And it's amazing how many people are like, oh, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's exactly what I do, because I can't afford to go to the doctor all the time. So I think it's the same stuff with emotional health, like it is with physical health. So like with emotional health, it's really spelling this stuff out of, okay, here's what healthy boundaries look like. Here's what they don't look like. If you're thinking, like, it's just kind of walking this tightrope almost with a lot of this kind of stuff. It's so easy to just get off track one step either side of the tightrope, and you fall. And especially because you've got pretty much so much movies and media and music and society that doesn't see this stuff for what it is. And if anything, it's the exact opposite, where they're confusing intensity with sincerity, and forgiveness with forgetting, and family is forever, and boundaries, you shouldn't have boundaries in a relationship, and communication solves everything. There's just all kinds of well-intended bad advice out there that's great within the right context. But if you're talking about with a pathological person, that kind of talk can get a person, way off track real fast. So, but yeah, I agree. The stuff really does need to be taught. Jennifer says, my mom is bipolar 1 and she has no insight when she's manic. It's like so obvious to everyone around her. And she's been diagnosed twice now and hospitalized both times. She's caused so much odd and crazy destruction in her life and her loved ones' lives. And it's really hard to fathom how she can't see it and why she gets so aggressive, even if you suggest she's manic. Yeah. You know what else is really interesting about that is with mental illness is every person is different. Like some people do have awareness of when they're not doing well, and some people don't at all. And it has nothing to do with their level of intelligence, their level of normal, everyday insight. Um, nothing, no, I mean, like nothing to do with their gender, nothing to do with how educated they are, nothing to do with how old they are. It's really wild. It's just a brain thing. And yeah, I've um, have off, just you do, you wonder, you're like, oh my goodness, like how do you not see this? And it's tragic when people just don't see it. I think that's really tragic when people don't see it, and especially when they are causing a tremendous amount of destruction and have a hard time staying on medication, and they just don't think that they have a problem. And even if they're in the hospital and they get out and then they're like, no, 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 I'm fine, everything's fine, you guys are making too big of a deal out of things, it was just stress, or um, I was never, or worse, I was never really sick, you just wanted to put me in the hospital, that kind of stuff. It's heartbreaking when people don't have that insight. Mm, yeah, Jennifer says, yeah. My mom's finally been taking meds after denying her problem for 35 years. She still denies it and doesn't talk about why she's taking her meds, but she took herself off her meds this year and went straight into a manic phase. Yeah, it's very common. And it's very common for people with bipolar to have maybe even certain times of the year. So if they had a traumatic event happen at a certain time, let's say they had a loved one die, or maybe holidays are a significant time, and you as family might see that where they're like, okay, there's a certain time of year where even if mom's medicated, that things don't go well. And the brain is just such a fascinating, complex thing, and but yeah, and that's so common. People will go off their meds because they feel better and they think, oh, I'm fine, or I don't really need these, or yeah, it's hard. It was one of the questions when I was a psychiatric nurse, and people would say, they're like, I think I'm fine. I think I was just going through a really rough time in my life. I don't think I'm bipolar, or I don't think I'm schizophrenic, and I want to get off my medication. And, we would talk to them. The doctor, of course, would talk to them. The therapist would talk to them. And one of my questions to them was always, do you have people in your life that you trust? Because if you do start to not do well, you may or may not have the insight into that, having that realization that you're not doing well. Like, do you have somebody around you that you trust enough to say, okay, this is a problem, like you're not doing well? And even then, even if they're like, yes, my brother, I totally trust him, but even then, if a person's getting sick, they're going to just spin reality and think, oh no, he's been brainwashed by the police, or, you know, who knows what. It's just so difficult. And I'm so sorry that you and your family, or even your mom, are having to go through that. It's just a rough road for everyone. Teresa was saying, she says, even being codependent, I had no idea. That's a really great point. Let's talk about that, because I think that's why that kind of behavior is why a lot of us are here. Is I didn't see any type of codependent behavior in myself for decades. And I was avidly looking for a way to make my life work. I didn't realize where I was going off track and what I needed to do to get back on track. And so my original concept of codependency was more of like, oh, you're staying with a person who's an addict or an alcoholic. Their behavior is really dragging you through hell. I thought of a codependent person as someone who was more kind of like a doormat, like passive, meek, quiet. And I was like, that is not me. Like the problematic relationships in my life, I feel like I've cut off as soon as they reared themselves. But like there were still big chunks of the puzzle that I was missing that I couldn't figure out. And I also didn't realize what poor boundaries really looked like. I think that's kind of a weird realization to think about. Like, how did I not realize that either? There were so many things, like so many things I didn't realize. I didn't realize when I was being mistreated in general. Just like me, like so many other people, it takes that one or two significant relationships in your life where you're like, that is like a Lifetime TV movie or like a Dateline episode. Then you start searching out because you're like, what on earth? Like that is so over the top, outrageous that we're looking for answers for that. We might come across the words like narcissism or sociopathy or psychopathy, and then all of their behavior starts to make sense. But then it's oftentimes down the path a ways that we start hearing kind of grumblings or mumblings about codependency or boundaries and stuff. And for, I think a lot of people, it's confusing. It's like, no, this was a hit and run thing. Like there's nothing really wrong with me. I got tangled up with this pathological person. And that is a big part of it because anybody can get tangled up with these people, but because they do such a good job of manipulating and lying. But if we're not, and again, I don't think most people are in tune with their emotions. I think most people are very quick to discount their instincts and to fall in. There's just a million different ways that you can take a step either side of that tightrope and get in trouble. And this stuff's not taught. Like, where are you going to find it? Do you know what I mean? Like, we're talking about it now, but it's not, like, I would say, mainstream kind of stuff. And even still, I by no means have all the answers, So it's very eye-opening. Yes, when you start realizing, okay, there's certain types of codependent kind of things that are within myself. There's certain boundary things that need work. There's certain learning to really tune into your instincts. That's such a huge one. So much that can be squeezed out of all of this that it can just be an absolute game changer. Yes. Okay, Manju, great point. Says, I never tell people what to do, how to feel, or how to act. I always make suggestions when asked for my advice. I feel that's a controlling a person when they talk otherwise. I agree, absolutely. Absolutely, it is. And you hit on a good point. Like, if somebody is asking for advice, then it's appropriate to give advice, right? If you don't feel like you're walking into a trap, because some people will ask for advice and they just want to wrestle whatever advice you give down to the ground. Or sometimes you just realize, well, what's the point? You're just going to do what you're going to do. We've had this conversation a million times before, just like, I'm done talking because, you don't want to hear it. So, but yeah, giving advice when it's asked for, unwanted advice is obnoxious. And other people, we don't want it, right? Like, nobody wants unwanted advice. It is controlling. So, but yeah, I think most of us, when we think about control, we think about it in terms of more of like a kind of more like a stereotypical controlling person of telling us what to wear, what to major in college, what kind of car to drive, what kind of clothes to wear, what kind of, oh, you should wear your hair this way and not that way, and you should. And it's more just about controlling our very being, not necessarily like our, I don't know. I guess for me, when people talked about codependent behavior as controlling, I didn't understand what they were talking about. But it's exactly what you're talking about, kind of giving unwanted advice, jumping in to fix a person or their life, and they don't want you to fix it. Maybe they just want to vent, or they just want somebody to listen, right? And so, yeah, kind of learning for us to not feel the need, like we don't need to fix other people. Like they can handle it. They're an adult. And even if they wanted us to fix them, we still can't fix them. Like, it just doesn't work that way. Steffi asks, don't some narcissists have insight into the havoc they're causing, but they just don't care, or worse, they enjoy it? Oh yeah, absolutely. The ones that are more on the malignant end of the spectrum do enjoy it. The sadistic ones, and that's their whole thing. It just makes them feel like the internet trolls. Like, it makes them feel smug and superior to go around doing things. And I would say really like that, depending on the level, like if it's really like dangerous and destructive and designed to be just soul destroying, that kind of thing, it's more on the end of like psychopathic behavior. But whatever, by whatever name you want to call it, yeah, that is a thing. It does exist, and it is, there's people out there that really do get their kicks on causing other people pain. It's important, I think, to see that. If you're, if somebody, it's one thing, it's, again, either any way you cut it, it's a problem. If somebody's poking buttons and you're getting the very distinct impression that they're getting off on hurting you, or they're saying really inappropriate things that is designed to just kind of twist that knife, like that is outrageous behavior. Distance yourself from those people. Like, that's like, I don't even, I mean, besides distancing yourself, there's no point in addressing it. Like, you're dealing with somebody who's got some major issues, and they feel they're getting some sort of self-esteem need met by causing others pain. Those people do a ton of damage in families, especially. So let's see. Healing Hopeful says, did anyone ever notice that narcissists were really paranoid or had weird phobias, or is that all part of the NPD? I mean, they're all different. I'm just trying to think of the ones that I've had in my life. Mine have all had some like quirks about them. Some more so than others, I guess. The more the sociopathic ones, I like really, I guess, didn't have any quirks. That, I don't know. I'd have to go back and think about those relationships based on kind of what I know now. At the time, I don't remember thinking that there was anything quirky. There were things like how they displayed emotion, like that was off. That was one of the things with both of them. I thought that's just really weird. Like, they're either putting on like overacting, putting on this huge performance, or there's no emotion at all. That was very strange. But as far as like paranoia, that kind of stuff, it could be that they know what they're up to. So if they're projecting that they're accusing you or others, people are stealing from them, people are out to get them, people are cheating on them, that kind of thing, it might be because that's what they're up to. So that's kind of how projection works. Weird phobias, I don't know. I mean, they're people. I mean, at the core, they're still people. So, again, like, you can have a person with a personality disorder, and they're obsessive compulsive, and they've got phobias, and they're depressed, and they have cancer, and they have diabetes, and maybe they have, high blood pressure, and. So these things don't exist in a vacuum. And so it can, more than one thing can be going on there. Leslie says they seem like such bullies. Yeah, I would say narcissists, the ones, if we're talking like a spectrum, we're like on the more mild end for a narcissist, it's like, oh, it's all about me, right? But on like the more like, no, you're really, and that's problematic within itself, because if it's all about them, then there's no room for anybody else. So nobody else is going to get their emotional needs met. They're all going to be putting their needs first all of the time, and other people are going to have to just deal with it. That's a problem. If it's to the point where it's like that mindset of like me at the expense of you, right? If a person's on that side of the spectrum, then yeah, then that's when you're talking about kind of bullying behavior. It's that unhealthy ego that never formed into a healthy ego. And so it's in order for them to, just like a bully, like it's the same type of behavior. In order for them to feel better about themselves, they have to tear other people down. And they tend to tear other people down in kind of one or two ways. Like they either tear down what they see in themselves that they don't like. They target in other people. So for example, let's say typical school bully, right? They see a kid, they might be bullying a kid that they consider weak or vulnerable. It's that vulnerability. And odds are that bully at school is probably getting bullied at home by either another sibling or by a parent, or something else is going on. That kid sees, unbeknownst to them, they tend to see that vulnerability, that all of that weakness and that stuff in themselves. They see that in this other kid at school and they're disgusted by it. And that's why they're bullying them. It's these unresolved wounds that they have from being bullied in another environment. So that can be part of it. Seeing something in somebody else that they don't like within themselves, or it can be if the target is acting in a way that they don't agree with. So any type of behavior that, because narcissists and abusive people in general tend to have this, the book, I think it was The Verbally Abusive Relationship. She summed it up perfectly in that book. She talks about abusers have this one mind, it was one brain type mindset of everything is an extension of them. It's like a child with a teddy bear, where the teddy bear only acts how the child wants it to act because the teddy bear is an extension of the child. And if the teddy bear, like, if it's only going to act how the child wants it to act, right? But the thing is, with people aren't that way. They're going to have their own sense of individuality. They're going to disagree on some level. They're going to have different tastes in music, or like different TV shows or different types of food. We can't continually read the abusive person's mind all the time, nor would we want to, because then who are we, right? There's no sense of self if we've become them. But to the abuser, they find it obnoxious and annoying of, oh my goodness, you're acting in a way that I don't like. You're wanting to go eat food that I don't like. You're doing these things that I don't like. And so they start grinding down their target in their mind. They're like, well, it's that one mind of we should totally be on the same page every moment of every single day. And if we don't, you're wrong. Like, it's your fault. And that's a problem. Yeah, Missouri Cowboy says envy, seeing what they desire, either stealing it or destroying it. The narcissist will not work for something. They just take and take and take. It's for a sense of control, power, or pleasure. Okay, that's a good point. Arrow Mod says, well, maybe you are wrong though. Okay, so like I was saying earlier, it's maybe I am, right? If I'm in a relationship with somebody and they start pointing out of things, maybe faulty thinking that I have, or they're disagreeing with me, it's not the disagreement that's the problem, right? Because I might have some like real far out there beliefs where they're like, that's not right, and this is concerning. It's about how it's approached. But if there isn't that open, honest, sincere, solutions-oriented communication, if it's not on a foundation of dignity and respect and treating another person with dignity and compassion and respect, then if they're just going to jump out at you and just T-bone you with, name calling, like, oh, you dumb bee, and like, you shouldn't have done that. Or, who thinks like that? That's just, and they just start, just grinding you down and just verbally berating you. That's not okay. It's okay to disagree. It's okay to be frustrated. It's okay to be angry. All of that stuff's okay. It's how we handle it. And any of us, how we handle that. So, but they will just lash out. And so it's really hard to kind of predict, because they've worked up this whole oftentimes they're not even aware that they're frustrated. It's the whole abusive mindset of, look at what you made me do. It's, you know, they feel that they're basically being provoked because it's that teddy bear that's acting up. It's the teddy bear that's showing individuality, and they get really upset with that. Of trying to think, you forgot to buy bread at the store, and then they like, then they lash out, they yell, they hit, they spit, they kick, they name call, and it's like, yeah, okay. The thing is, they would never tolerate being treated like that. And but in their mind, it doesn't even go, like, they don't even understand. It's like their wiring is just kind of tangled up, like, with their thinking, because they don't understand. They understand on that level that it's wrong, right? If you did it to them, they would have a big problem with that. They don't do this stuff at work. They do it around people that they know that they can get away with it and that they're comfortable around. And they feel justified and entitled in treating other people this way. No, I don't think so. Arrow Mod says, I think that they are uncensoring themselves. It's what everyone thinks, but people censor themselves. Well, because nobody is honest at work, but they are honest at home. It's not honest. Okay, so let's talk about this. It's not brutal honesty. It's their opinion. And so we don't know. I don't know, like, what you're thinking or feeling, because I'm not you. Just like you don't know what I'm thinking or feeling because you're not me. We might have some ideas based on a person's behavior, but it's just kind of a guess. And so for us to be that brutal honesty of like, oh, I'm just keeping it real, and but then we're a jerk to other people, like, that isn't being honest, that's being a jerk. Like, there's a difference. It's in how we approach that kind of stuff. And so to unload on people that are in our inner circle and expect them to stick around is, and expect them to, like, I don't know, expect it just, to not destroy everybody around them is very inaccurate. So Arrow says, men respect honesty even if it hurts. I respect honesty even if it hurts, but I think there's a tactfulness is always a part of it. So not everybody wants brutal honesty all of the time. That's just being a jerk. So if you see something, let's say if you have a friend, right, or I don't know, you're being honest with somebody, if that's your dynamic, but if somebody says, hey dude, like, you're being a jerk, or can we talk about this, or it's okay if you don't like what I'm doing, but if I'm not asking for your opinion, I don't care. Like, I don't care what you think. You're being honest about your opinion, but the world, it's just part of getting along with others. Like, nobody wants my opinion all the time, right? Like, it's having that kind of emotional awareness of, like, when and how to be honest and when to just sit down, because like that kind of stuff isn't warranted all of the time. But if you can have that honesty with somebody where there is that level of emotional trust, where you might have a really good friend, like my brother and I, for example, we have a very honest relationship, but there's always tact involved, and it's always like, do you want my honest opinion about this? And then on it. But the thing is, I feel I'm emotionally safe with him. Like, he's a good guy. I know he's got my best intentions at mind. Even if he's being honest, he would never try to, like, destroy me emotionally, right? Like, he'll be straight up, but in a tactful way. And even if he's like, you know what, for real, like, this is a problem. I really hope that you can see that this is a problem. I love you. I want the best for you. We've had the same conversation now, 5 times. Like, when are you going to do something different? Like, he'll be straight up, and I appreciate that. But yeah, just kind of knowing that. But I wouldn't have that same kind of dynamic with like a total stranger, or maybe not even a friend if they weren't open to discussing certain things. If you work in a good work environment too, I will say that honesty is oftentimes appreciated. Again, it's just the way that it comes packaged. Okay, let me. Yeah, Lucy Cat is talking about with narcissists, it's oftentimes it's just a bunch of game playing and some sort of competition with you. And you're like, why is everything a competition? And then when you call them out, they play dumb. That kind of stuff, these conversations from hell that never get resolved. And the diversion tactics, you know, you bring up an issue you have with them of, you know, whatever that issue might be, they divert and they shift and they blame shift, and now it's, oh, I guess you're perfect, let's talk everything about that, all of the issues about you, right? Or, oh, you're never happy, or oh, you're looking for a fight, or oh, you're too sensitive, or oh, you're too emotional. It's all these diversion, deflection, right? Not gonna, let's not talk. And all of that stuff might even be real, but it still doesn't address the issue at hand. So that's what's so crazy making, is that they just, because they feel entitled and justified with how they treat other people, there's this complete inability for them to accept any accountability for their own action, and to actually admit, like, yeah, maybe this other person has some sort of problem with your behavior. Like, can you discuss this, or can you actually own up to it? Like, if you stole money, you stole money. If you cheated, you cheated. If you, like, these are facts, these aren't feelings, right? Like, these are like legit things that you can point to be like, this is a problem. You know, they just skirt the issue. That kind of stuff is, it's crazy making. Crazy making. Gigi, ugh, yeah. Says, I attempted to purchase a car today as a separated woman. I felt red flags with the manipulative sales tactics, and my clearly stated boundaries were being pushed. I trusted myself and walked away. Yeah, that's, oh God, that, talk about trial by fire. Yeah, at a car dealership, it's that kind of stuff is just exhausting. I think for anybody, male or female, they're just um, such a hard sell, hard sales tactics that they implement. It's a good one. Missouri Cowboy says, I'm learning to identify my hooks, what I fall for. The hook overrides my instincts. I get so excited, I get high by the hook. I ignore my instincts. Thus, I've been an excellent target. This is, yes, everybody that gets hooked in by some sort of manipulator. That's the thing, is we all have vulnerabilities. Even narcissists have, especially, frankly, narcissists have vulnerabilities. And until we're able to actually know what they are, that we run the risk of them potentially getting hooked. And if we don't know how to think, if we're not in tune with our instincts, and we don't know how to think critically about a situation, then yeah, it's easy for a person to just fall into. It's amazing the stuff that we can fall into. Intelligent, reasonable, grounded people get tangled up in cults, got tangled up with Bernie Madoff, got tangled up with people like Hitler, continue to defend all kinds of like problematic behavior from other people all the time. I swear, I watch a bunch of videos on, I don't know, just all kinds of stuff on YouTube. And it's always interesting. Here's a good example of this. I don't know if you guys followed the Daddy of Five guy. They had this channel, and it was this husband and wife. Well, she was like the second wife, and they had 5 children, and they targeted I think it was their youngest. And it was horrific, and it was all videoed, and it was all supposed to be like prank videos. And it was so like dude, you're so freaking clueless. Like they should both be in jail. Their behavior is outrageous. And they in their mind, they're like, it's funny, it's funny. And like their kid is having all kinds of issues. He at one point the camera was rolling and they would do things like they'd promise to go to Disney World, but then they would tell him at the last minute, we're not going to Disney World. And they would just capture his reaction and this kid would just emotionally crumble. And then they might say, oh, we're just kidding. It was that kind of stuff. So this kid's just always like, unsafe in this environment. And physically, they would just physically do things. And he was young at the time, stuff that's when you're 5 or 6 years old, especially, I mean, really at any age, but stuff that would be terrorizing to a child. And this little boy was having issues at school. He was on camera one time, the stepmom had said, oh, he was being really bad. He basically had been wiping feces on the wall. These are all responses to kids that have gone through trauma. And they continued to justify it. They did a whole video with the kid. They're like, oh, it's just a joke. Like, oh, you can't take a joke. We're basically, that's such the mind of the abuser. Like, oh man, we're just, we're funny. Like, we're just funny. It's your problem. You can't take the joke. Well, thankfully the courts disagreed that it's not freaking funny. You're bullying your kid, you jerk. And they took the kids away. And anyways, what was even more upsetting was reading the comments and how many people justified his behavior of like, I don't see what's wrong with it. Like, it was just a joke. And it's like, dude, just because the guy says, like, at what point do you have to ask yourself, like, where does the introspection come in? Where you think, maybe this isn't funny. We find it hilarious. Maybe my kid doesn't find it so funny. Like, he's acting traumatized. Like, where's your line in the sand where you finally realize, like, maybe they're not even intending to be a jerk. Maybe my kid's interpreting my behavior in a way that I'm not intending, and I need to reel this stuff back. But there was just no insight. And this poor kid just tormented, all of those kids tormented, just disgusting. Frustrating. I know, right? Jennifer says, I just want to hug that kid. All of those kids are going to have issues. Yeah. I'm with you. I'm so glad they got those kids out of that house. They would even do things. They thought it was so funny. One of the videos was, and these kids are all fairly close in age. They had the one little boy. No, it was the older boy. They were egging him on. They're like, come on, hit your sister, hit your sister. And he really like whomped her good and it hurt her, right? And I don't think anybody thought that he was going to hit her this hard. And the parents were just, like, oh my God, I cannot believe he did that. And they were laughing and, ha ha ha, except there's this little girl who's hurt, right? And this little boy who's been pushed into hurting his sister, just stuff like that. And it's like, dude, you're like, disgusting. Okay, great question. Arrow Mod says, what is the difference between bullying and peer pressure? I would say it's on the kind of the same spectrum. So peer pressure is more like pushing somebody into doing something, right? Bullying is more peer pressure is like, oh, come on, come on, come on, this is cool. Like, dude, just do it. And there's kind of like, there's kind of that push pull, like, oh, you want to, come on, let's do it. You're pushing somebody into doing something. Bullying tends to be more focused on somebody's, more focused on a person for certain like traits. You're not trying to get them to necessarily, you're not a peer, like you're not like a friend or like an equal. It's you might be trying to get them to do something, but it's more of like that grinding them down, of focusing on things that you don't like, making fun of them, cruel teasing, sarcasm, you're making them the butt of the joke, there's name calling, things that are designed to really hurt a person emotionally or physically or both is more what I would consider to be bullying. See, okay, Arrow Mod says, it's not like you poked her eye out. It's not so serious. and see that's kind of the thinking. And this is the thinking, and I'm addressing this because this is the kind of thinking that a lot of people tend to have with abuse in general. Of they take it to this extreme point. If it's only a problem, so this is why people stay in abusive relationships, because they're like, it could be worse. I mean, it's not like, it's not like you bashed her head in. It's not like you broke a bone or she broke a bone. It's not like that serious. But if we're waiting for things to get that serious, they normally end up deadly. So it's really important that we see abuse when it's much earlier on. Like that stuff is a big deal. I mean, you've got kids that, yeah, okay, so she didn't lose an eye, but they're all, the little boy especially is acting really traumatized. So it's, even if that father's actions were to be like, oh, I just think it's funny, right? I think it's funny to have to punk my kids like this, right? Even if his intentions weren't meant to be abusive, our actions might be one way, but if the result is something different. So we might think, oh, I'm just joking. I'm just teasing with you. I'm just making fun of you. I'm just good natured fun. And we really mean it. We really mean it. Like, hey man, I'm just razzing you. Like I do this to everybody and my other friends, they think it's hilarious. But if you're teasing a person and they don't like it and they're like, dude, stop. Like or you can tell by their actions, their body language is changing. They're clamming up. They're avoiding you. They're wiping poop on the walls like this kid was. They're acting in ways that you can tell that they're not okay with how you're treating them. Then even though your intention might be just to kind of joke around with them, that's not how that they're receiving that. And so if you tell a joke to a person and they don't find it funny, then you don't get to determine whether or not that joke is actually funny. Like it's important. That's kind of getting along with other people 101 kind of stuff. So then it's like, okay, you know what? If that person doesn't find that funny, then I need to really respect that boundary and not keep pushing it, because then that's when you become a jerk. Right. So when we all can interact with people differently. Like you might be able to act with your certain friends like that, but you can't act like that with your boss. You might even be able to roughhouse with a couple of your kids, but not with other ones. You might be able to tell, so that kind of that level of like emotional maturity to kind of see how are people responding to your behavior. And if you don't mean to hurt their feelings, then it's nice to be like, okay, dude, I didn't mean to offend you. I didn't mean to hurt you. Like, I'll quit playing with you that way because that's not my intention. Yeah, Ben says, yeah, Dana, it's always about how something is received. So, let's see here. I would agree. Butte says when kids are traumatized, their subconscious suffers. Yeah. Arrow Mod says, do shoot 'em up video games cause real life violence? I don't know. I think it depends on what study you look at. I think there's studies that say that it doesn't, and there's studies that say that it does. I don't think it necessarily causes people to go out and open fire. But I think if you've ever been around small children that have seen an action film of any kind, they tend to, people in general tend to kind of emulate what they've been exposed to. But I don't think video games make people violent. Okay, let's see. Oh my goodness, Marion says my daughter-in-law is a narcissist and Munchausen. She destroyed our family. Oh, how devastating. How did you come to realize the Munchausen in her? Was she doing it to herself? Was it Munchausen or Munchausen by proxy, where she was making others around her sick or claiming that they needed help. Yeah, Jennifer says, yes, so many people don't realize that kids are all individuals and take things differently. And adults are too, right? Like, it's just, that's just part of having emotional intelligence, is understanding that you can't treat all the people the same, that not everybody's like you. Not everybody's going to find everything that you find funny, or interesting, or they're not going to agree with you 100% on everything. And that's where, conversation and kind of understanding comes into play. So yeah, Christine says Munchausen by proxy is when a parent, thank you for elaborating on that for people who don't know. Yeah, is when a parent induces illness in their children, often in a dangerous way to get attention for themselves. They might poison their child slowly in hopes that the medical staff pays attention, or they might claim that their child is sick when they're not. They might even try to, there was a woman recently who was trying to who had somehow convinced her child that he had cancer, and had a GoFundMe and was milking this. The child did not have cancer, and the child had been told he had cancer for a while. And I don't even know how this went past doctors, or I don't even know like how it got to the point that it did, but it was disgusting. This poor kid. And you see, I think you can see a lot of that kind of stuff on social media, people saying, oh, just posting things to get attention, and the sadder the better. It's also a great way to get donations, right? People post stuff all the time about different kind of sad stories in their life, and most normal, decent people want to help. And there's a lot of fraud, that kind of stuff that goes around. I'm a big fan of, if you give money to a GoFundMe, make sure that you ideally know that person or have a pretty close connection, that you can make sure that it's legitimate, because it's such a big problem. Oh, wow. Marion says, I was with her when she was faking in the hospital, went from her faking a stroke and kidney problems. She goes to different hospitals and doctors. Interesting. Yeah, that's really wild. Jennifer says, sometimes I feel overwhelmed mentally, especially being an introvert, working with the public on my feet all day and having CPTSD, etc. I sometimes request an extra day off once a month just for myself to kind of recuperate. And sometimes it's granted, sometimes it's not. I sometimes feel guilty though, because I'm not sure if this is just laziness on my part. It's not laziness on your part. I mean, CPTSD in and of itself is exhausting. Having depression and anxiety, if you've got any of that, feeling hypervigilant, any one of those things alone is exhausting in and of itself. And then also being an introvert, and if you have a job that's working with the general public all day, it's incredibly draining. And that's a big part of being an introvert. Like, people think being an introvert has to do with being shy, or or having an extrovert means that you're very outgoing. It's not. It's about how we get, what gives us or drains us of energy. And so introverts are people that tend to really need a lot of alone time and downtime in order to recharge their batteries. That's how we recharge. Doing this live stream is incredibly draining for me. I'll tell you some of the things that I do that have worked for me, and maybe that'll kind of help work for you too. But So it can be confusing. So it's like, well, wait a minute, like here's this person, or like with you, right? Like, oh, you work with the general public all day long. Like, what do you mean you're introverted? You can't be introverted. But if it's draining energy from you, and at the end of the day, you're like, I just want to go home and go to bed, or I just want to go home and be alone, that tends to be more introversion. Extroverts tend to really, they get energy from being around other people and from interacting, and they love, parties, that kind of stuff. Just concerts really recharge them. Introverts, that tends to really drain us. So, um, but yeah, allowing yourself that downtime is a big thing. And I love the fact that you're kind of trying to figure out your schedule and you're like, hey, I could really use an extra day off a month. But then you're like, oh, if that can't happen, then it can't happen. I understand. But if it can, that would be ideal, just to recoup. And knowing that, I mean, in my 20s, I did not understand what the differences between an introvert and an extrovert were until fairly recently, actually, until probably about, I don't know, a couple of years ago. And that was such a game changer. And I always felt so bad. I totally felt like the biggest wet blanket, like in my 20s. We went out to bars pretty much 7 days a week when I was in my early 20s. And all of my friends, I would say, were extroverted except for me. And they love to go bar hopping. I would have been fine hanging out at somebody's house, having a few beers and just talking or playing cards. But they liked to go out and see who all was out and go to bar from bar and like wait in lines and do that. I hated that so much. And I would always leave just feeling just exhausted. And I just didn't understand like why we couldn't just go someplace and just hang out. But that was not their personality. So like knowing that, like it's okay to not want to bar hop on the weekends and find that draining. It's okay to really find enjoyment with just being by yourself and needing that to recharge. When I started doing these live streams, um, I was shocked. Well, at the time I was still working full time, and I was shocked because Thursday would come around and I was exhausted, like beyond exhausted. And it took me like a year to figure out like why that was. I thought I was lazy because I was like, Dana, like, what are you doing? Like, you're just doing a live stream for 3 hours. It's not like you're running, just kind of like what the other guy was saying. It's like, it's not like this extreme thing, right? It's not like you're running a marathon. It's not even like you're doing a 3 hour, like highly edited video. It's just you turn the camera on. So why are you, it didn't feel legitimate, like that I should be exhausted by doing that. And now that I understand, yeah, okay. But at the same time, I enjoy doing this. So I'm going to keep doing this, but I have to pace myself. I make Thursdays my down day. That's the day, like laundry, catch up on life. I don't do real kind of mentally taxing things. If I want to sleep in, I do. If I just kind of catching up on the odds and ends of things. So kind of shuffling things around where okay, I've got more energy at these times and less at these times. You might even down the road want to start looking for another job where it's not so general public heavy, because that is exhausting, especially for an introvert. Okay, let's see. Okay, Jennifer says, like I requested tomorrow off work and it was approved a couple weeks ago, but then a couple days ago, my manager asked if I could pick up a shift tomorrow, but I lied and said I had to be somewhere. And now I feel guilty for lying. Ugh, I just don't know how to handle these things. And yeah, okay, so it's hard. It can be difficult. It can be difficult setting boundaries in the moment, especially if we're not comfortable being assertive and we're not like, we feel obligated, we feel that our own wants and needs are not legitimate. This kind of stuff, these subtle little boundary setting things take just as much practice as some of the bigger stuff. And so but the good thing is now that you know that about yourself of like, okay, my manager just asked if I could work and I froze and like was so knocked off balance like by that, I didn't know what to say. And so I just made up something. So now you can kind of plan ahead for that. Like if somebody were to say, because I'm a big fan, I think it is really important that we start getting comfortable, like walking in our truth and being as authentic as we can in appropriate ways as we can. And so that kind of a situation, next time you could say something, it's a completely valid response to say, oh, you know what? I already have plans for my day off. Or, you know, I really need this day off. I wish I could help maybe another time. Or kind of coming up with just some different responses. It's valid. Like you had the day off. I totally get that. It's uncomfortable saying no to a person, especially if we're feeling like guilty or that the reason that we need to take that day off isn't valid to begin with, right? Of, oh, I just need to recharge. Like it can feel like, oh, you know, it can feel so luxurious, like, oh, she just needs to recharge. But honestly, that's oftentimes the story that we're telling ourselves. Other people understand, like, oh, you've got plans for your day off, even if your plan is sleeping in and having a movie marathon, like they get that. Or even if you were to say, you know, I just really need a day just to recoup and clear my head and catch up on life. I wish I could, wish I could help you out, but I can't. Maybe next time. Or you don't even have to go into all of that. So I think the closer you can get to the truth, the less those guilty kind of feelings will happen, because there's no reason to feel guilty. But I think we have to feel valid for what we want, and your wants and your needs. And it's okay to take time off, Okay, let's see. Bonnie asks, Dana, do you find your live streams alone are more exhausting than the ones done with someone else? Just curious, as I've struggled doing weekly shows alone. It depends on the dynamic with the other person. So with the book clubs, and we've done a couple different versions of those. When we first started, I think, well, it was me and Lucy for a few of them. And then we had a group of 4 or 5 people. I think that lasted maybe 1. And then Shay was doing them with me. And then Healthy Love. Every person, and I should see if Shay wants to do book club stuff again. I don't know. That just kind of, I don't know. I need to get in touch with her. But it depends on the dynamic you have with that person. Some people are more comfortable on camera than other people. Some people, so if a person's not comfortable on camera, it's just hard. It's hard to find your rhythm with people. Angie, she is such a joy like to do live streams. I feel like that's wrecked me because she's so easy to just talk to. I feel like we have so much stuff in common, and I feel like our live streams just really flow. She just is so easy that it makes my Wednesday streams, when it's just me, feel even more difficult, because it's just me. It's so nice having somebody else there that's kind of keeping that conversation going. But I would say that I've been doing these for about 3 years now. And the first probably year and a half was, if not even like 2 years, 2.5 years. It took me a while to find my rhythm. It was very nerve-wracking, very, very, very nerve-wracking. And there was all this pressure on me to kind of keep talking and keep the live stream going. And I'm trying to read comments at the same time and think at the same time. And, you kind of trying to figure out and then not getting knocked off balance when there's trolls in the comment section. And there's just there's a lot of stuff it takes a little bit to kind of get your sea legs with all of it. Yeah. Bonnie says, she says, I'm not uncomfortable on camera. I get what you were saying though. I've done some larger shows and felt lost among the crowd, but I think I need a good co-host I click with to motivate me more. Yeah, I think that is, and I've noticed this. Of course, it's always easier to see this stuff on other people, right? With other podcasts that I listen to, especially if they have a guest host that week. And then you kind of realize, oh my goodness, these other two hosts really have great chemistry. They really click. Like they're just so in rhythm. But then at the same time, like if you go back and you listen to like their first dozen episodes, they don't have that chemistry. It kind of took them a while to get in sync with each other. So if you're looking for a co-host for a live stream, I would encourage you to kind of test that out with other people and try to get on the same page, because it is difficult to kind of keep the conversation going without talking over each other. And, like, I don't know, it takes a bit. And the benefit too of having when you have that schedule of, okay, we're doing this live stream this day, this time, and you have a good co-host, then it's so much easier to make sure that you don't put it off if it's uncomfortable. So like for Tuesdays, I'm like, I know Angie's relying on me and I'm relying on her, right? Like we're relying on each other to show up, to be there, to do these live streams, and our community is relying on us. And we just started doing this new thing, which has made it a lot easier, I think, for both of us. Because the first few minutes of every live stream is always kind of awkward, where we're like waiting for people to come on, and there's like, we're like, hey, how are you? Like, there's just kind of this awkwardness there. So we decided that we were going to each try to come up with something that we could talk about during those first 5 minutes, something that we could kind of open with. And that's helped tremendously to take that pressure off of, okay, we're just kind of sitting here waiting for somebody to ask a question. Like we have something to talk about. So there's just a lot of little things like that. I think you just kind of get figured out as you move forward. Let's see. James says, he's talking about the vacation time. He says, I get the guilty part. He says, I have 70 hours of vacation, but I feel guilty thinking of using it. Yeah, isn't that interesting, like where that stuff comes from, And I had a coworker that was like that. She was a fantastic nurse and had, hundreds of hours of vacation time, hadn't taken a vacation in like a year, never called in sick, was always there. And I think it was that same feeling of like, she felt guilty because we all knew like there were three of us. So because somebody wasn't there, the other two really felt their workload. But at the same time, it was like, you know what? None of this stuff is critical. Everything that, thankfully, where we worked, none of it was critical. Yes. Like it can wait. And if it is critical, then they need to go to the hospital. We're not that kind of clinic. So like just realizing, okay, this, like you've got to pace yourself. Like this is your life. And there's the reason that you have vacation time. It's important to take vacation time. It's important to take downtime. Thank you, Malta, for the live stream donation. She says, I feel upset and confused as to why people feel the need to occasionally compliment my appearance or clothing. Why don't they look deeper? And how much have I missed out on because I am depressed? Well, I think sometimes people compliment other people on surface stuff, like your appearance or clothing. I think in part because they really mean it. Like, oh, that's a cute top, or that's a cute haircut, or just kind of a quick compliment in passing. My guess would be that if you're seeking something deeper, my initial reaction to that is it almost sounds like you're craving connection in your life, and that you're wanting to, and I could be way off here, but that's what that strikes me as, that you're wanting people to see and connect with you at a much deeper level, and to see what makes you you. Like, it's not the haircut, it's not the top, right? It's the deeper stuff of what makes Malta Malta. And to me, that just signifies of like just wanting that deeper connection to people. So I would be curious to know, like, is that, and you don't have to answer, but if that is accurate, you are kind of missing that deeper connection with people. Is it because of the depression, or has this been going on for a long time? And if you do think it's because of the depression, that might be something worth making an appointment to go see your doctor about. So depression's a tough thing, and there's a lot we can do to help medically to help with that. And I know I've struggled with depression on and off my whole life, and I need to take my own advice on that. Yeah, and that, honestly, that's great. That's a big part of it. Arrow Mod says go for a jog equals no more depression. I agree. Exercise, even exercise on a regular basis, doesn't even have, you don't even have to go to like the gym and crush it, but doing stuff for even 5-10 minutes makes a huge difference in just the endorphins and all of that. So here's something that I started, right? Yesterday was my birthday, and I have been basically lying to myself for a very long time about getting into shape. And I decided, I'm done. Like, I'm done lying to myself. I want to at least start moving in this direction of getting healthier. Like, it's like, if not now, when? Like, really, like, when am I going to do this? And so I decided to start doing this thing where I'm going to I'm going to do some sort of activity every single day, because I feel like I need to build the habit before I start getting into like I don't need to get super in depth with training and all of that. I just need to get started. I feel like I just need to get started. And so it's like, okay, even if that's a 5-minute walk, even if it's some sit-ups and push-ups, something every single day to get into the habit of doing that. And I do think it would really help my mood too, because, it's so easy to not have, I don't know, to not have a healthy lifestyle. And, it's like, well, no wonder I tend to feel the way that I do oftentimes. Okay. But Malta, I would be curious if you are struggling with depression, and if you do decide that, I would encourage you to get clear with yourself. Like, if you're not comfortable with reaching out to a doctor or a healthcare provider now, asking yourself, okay, at what point do I need to? Like, what are the signs that things are going to be bad enough that I do something different? So then you'll know when that point is there. It's really easy to live with depression, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, decades have gone by. So trying to just, I think, be aware of that. And it's hard because that kind of stuff can very quickly become our new normal. Oh, thank you, Lauren. It says, happy birthday, Dana. You are so valued to me and to this community, and you are beautiful inside and out. Thank you for everything. Well, thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. And thank you for the live stream donation. Yep, totally. Jennifer says there's no try, only do. Yeah, so I have this gal who is in I have this writer group that I'm in. And one of her things is, she was talking about, she loves to do, what does she call it? Not sprints. What do you call that? Where you do something every single day? I'm totally drawing a blank on that. Anyways, so she writes every single day. And so she keeps track of it every single day. Even if it's for 15 minutes a day, she writes. And so she really likes having this word that I can't think of, like this long standing, what is that? It's not a routine. It's like a streak. It's like a streak. It's like a writing streak, right? Or like an exercise streak. So it's ongoing and it's long. So she's been doing this for years now. And she's like, I don't want to miss a day because I don't want to break my streak. And I thought, you know what? I really like the thinking behind that. I like the idea of just doing, for me, I mean, I write every day, so that's not a thing, but like, for exercise, even if it's 5 or 10 minutes, like I just want to start a streak. So I decided, okay, I'm going to start the day, August 1st for the next year. That's going to be my goal, is to see if I can do this. There's no reason not to, right? Like it takes seriously, 30 seconds to do 10 sit-ups or 10 push-ups. I think a lot of people struggle with this. They struggle with weight gain. They struggle with depression. I think it would be a really positive. I'm not sure how open I want to be, like with all of that stuff, with my own life on the channel. But I think at the same time, it might be really good to do something where it's like, let's just thrive. Like whatever your goal is, like let's do some concentrated time. I know Doug. I was thinking about. I don't know if Doug's on tonight, but. Had mentioned a couple times over the past few years about wanting to clean and wanting to do some things differently and getting motivated. And it was like, I think there's so many people that are at that place. They're totally overwhelmed, or they're just stressed out, or it's the PTSD, or it's lots of different things. And I think it would just be cool to be like, okay, 10 minutes, like we're going to kick it into gear for 10 minutes. So let's get a plan for the next 10 minutes. Is it going to be cleaning? Is it going to be organizing? Is it going to be exercising? What are we going to do? Like, let's truly like thrive after abuse. Yeah. Abuse Free says, let's just thrive. Yes. Missouri. Okay. Missouri Cowboy, you bring up a great point. And I was thinking about something similar to that today. Missouri Cowboy says, you started 3 years ago. It was so hard. His inner critic would not shut up. You can't do it. It's too hard, etc. So I got to know my inner critic too and tell it to shut up. Okay. Jennifer, maybe it was you that was talking about this a while back about inner critic voice and how do we kind of start combating that. And I was thinking about this today, and it dawned on me that we can truly have a conversation, just like what Missouri Cowboy is saying. We can truly have a conversation with that voice. So that voice may be talking to us, but we can tell it to just go sit down, and having that back and forth, like literally, where it says something like, oh, you can't do this. And then to come back and say, you know what, I can do this. Like I am doing this, like, what do you like voice? What do you know? Like I don't need this. I don't need this flack in my life. And literally either talking out loud or just saying it in your head, whatever. I work from home, so I talk to myself all the time. And so when that kind of negative chatter comes up or whatever, I just, if it says, oh, well, you'll never figure that out, or you don't know, or this, that, and the other, it's like, well, you know what? I don't know right now, but I'm pretty sure I can figure it out. And if I can't figure it out, I can find somebody that can. Like I can make this happen. Let's see. Oh, that's an interesting thought. Jennifer says, would it be better to give the inner critic an identity, or would that be giving it too much power? I don't know. I think you'd have to kind of just play with that and see. I would be curious. let's see. Yeah, Missouri Cowboy says, I was 60. He said it's never too late to start. I had to keep telling my inner critic, better late than never, over and over and over. Yeah. It's so, so true. Oh, well, thank you, Malta. She says, thanks for your response and encouragement. I'll be more vigilant in my pursuit of treatment. Thanks for all that you do. You are so very welcome. And keep me posted. Keep us posted if you don't mind. And don't, no obligation there, but I just would be curious. I kind of, I don't know. I get a kick out of seeing where people are down the road. It's just enjoyable when people's lives start working for them, you know? Jennifer, I so agree with you. She says, whenever I eat garbage food, it tastes good in the moment, but I feel lethargic afterwards. It's so much more energizing to eat well. Kind of like how I used to be hungover all the time. I hate that feeling. Yeah, I totally hear that. What I have found is with like, I'm not a big fast food person, but when I do eat it, like with McDonald's, like the French fries, I have to remind myself, I'm like, Dana, yes, they're going to be so good. The inside of your mouth is going to taste like it's coated in oil because it's coated in oil. That's just such a gross feeling. And then you feel all gross and you just, it's not worth it. Like, it's not worth it. Ugh. But yeah, slowing that stuff down. Really? I'll have to check that out. CFIN says there was a video out there with a girl who did push-ups every day for months, and the progress she made was amazing. I will have to check that out. That would be that's a great idea for a video. That's very encouraging. Yeah. Butte says the mind-body connection is so important in exercise. Yes. Big D says, after narcissistic abuse, is it normal to not want to get close to someone romantically? Yes, absolutely. And I think for a lot of people, it can take several years for a person to even feel even remotely interested in somebody else. So that's very, very common. I would encourage you, this might just be like way kind of, I don't know, TMI or kind of too deep here, but I'll try to kind of not have it be too much information here. But with that part of yourself, like the feeling romantic, even feeling sexy, can feel like just we're a million miles away. Like, I don't want to feel that way. I don't want any attention. I'm not trying to attract any attention. I just want to be left alone, right? Like, I just feel really icky and used and violated and gross, and I just want to be left alone. I would encourage you, if you're feeling that way, to try to regain power back over those feelings of feeling sexy, feeling attractive, feeling like a sexual person. So kind of just reclaiming your sexuality and realizing it doesn't have to do anything with that person ever again, that you can make yourself feel sexy and sexual and attractive in ways that have nothing to do with them. If you can kind of see what I'm getting at here without being a weirdo, without me being a weirdo on the internet, but like, and maybe even starting in ways of just kind of self-care, right? Like appearance wise, or you could even buying yourself some kind of like sexy lingerie, or just feeling sexual outside of actually being sexual with another person. Just realizing it's okay. Like, it's a totally controlled environment. Like, you're in your space. You're not doing this for anybody else. You're doing this just to get reconnected with your sexuality. and realizing like, and making that declaration of, I'm not going to let them take this away from me. Like this is a healthy part of being human. And, guys, you can do this in whatever way that you feel comfortable doing this, like reconnecting with your own sexuality and your own masculinity, and realizing, okay, I'm not going to let this other person win. I'm not going to give them that kind of power to destroy me on so many different levels. Yeah. And IB says, I've been on a self-care, self-love journey for the past year, and I can see such a difference in myself. I still have a ways to go, but improvement is definitely there. That's awesome. And yes, that's the cool thing. Like once you see the road, right, of like, oh, this is the path. Because I think for so many of us, it's like, what does this mean? Like, what does self-care mean? What does self-love mean? Isn't that narcissistic? Like, it's weird to love myself. Like, I'm not even sure what that means. But really getting clear on, okay, this is the path. Like, this is what self-love means. This is what self-care means. This is an important thing. It's things start snapping into place. And self-love, in terms of, I like to substitute the word love for the word value. So valuing yourself, valuing your body, valuing your energy, your emotions, your time, your space, your everything that you interact with, valuing that. And it's amazing how much things start to change when we start thinking of self-love in terms of self-value, instead of just thinking of, oh, I love myself, or not hating ourselves. Like self-love, like loving ourselves is not necessarily the opposite of like not hating ourselves. It's more about valuing ourselves and in every single aspect of our life. Such a game changer. James, where is your question? Or was it Jennifer? Okay, Big D says, I have been obese most of my life. I've lost weight again for the third time, 150 pounds. I'm a guy, so lingerie is not for me. He said, but I have started to gain weight a little bit, but I want to start up again. Okay. So, but yeah, I think it's like reclaiming your body, getting in touch with your masculinity, with your sexuality, feeling good. My brother, for those that don't know, my brother is a personal trainer. He lives in another state. I wish he lived closer. Lives in another state. He's also does like fitness modeling and like, competitions. And I'm like, how are we related? He is so interested in fitness, and it's just his life. And it was so weird to me. He'd made a comment. He was joking around, joking, but not really. He was talking about trying some clothes on. And he's like, when you go into the dressing room mirrors and like you're flexing and like you're, and you're just like thinking, like, damn, that looks good on me. And I was like, no, actually, I've never had that experience. Like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I try to just make sure clothes fit, and then I'm out the door. I don't like looking at my body in the mirror. And it made me realize that there's people out there like my brother that, and this is and it doesn't even have to do with size. Like I see this on YouTube too, where people at any size are doing like clothing hauls, and they're filming themselves trying on clothes. I'm like, can I just please have like 1/10 of your self-esteem? I would love for shopping for clothes to be some kind of experience like that. And so that's kind of one of my goals, is to be more at peace with the skin that I'm in. And I don't want to wait. Like, I don't want to wait to love my body, right? I kind of think that for true change to happen, like we have to love ourselves enough to develop the healthy habits in order to sustain the change. I don't think, because I've struggled with eating disorders pretty much my whole life too. And it's always been this mindset of like self-loathing and like punishing, if you're not going to eat today, or you're only going to eat a small meal, or you deserve a big meal. It's always just this unhealthy relationship with food, and I'm just over it. I'm just done. So yeah, I think we need to have like a group thing of like, how are we going to thrive? Like, let's get a plan, and like, what does this look like? And let's do it. Let's do it. Okay. We, what was I going to say? I was going to say something. My brain. Something. Oh, EMDR. That's what it was. I had said last week that we had talked about EMDR, and I said, I have never done that. I've heard wonderful things about EMDR and EFT from people. So I need to get in touch with her and see if she's emailed me back. But I contacted a gal who's sometimes on these live streams she does a technique called faster EFT, and it's tapping therapy, but it somehow is supposed to work faster than normal EFT. I don't know. So I'm going to see if I can do a session with her, and if she'd be okay with me videoing it. And then I will share it with you guys, and then we can talk about it. I guess depending on how the session goes, I'll share it. If it's, I don't know. But at a minimum, I will talk about it and let you guys know what my experience was and kind of my 2 cents on it. And then we can at least start discussing kind of EMDR and EFT and what people think about it and all that. Yeah, Missouri Cowboy says, I am still in the flirt with me and die stage of having been betrayed. It says, and that's okay. Healing is a personal journey. Healing takes time. I have to remember to be patient and kind to myself and keep doing the footwork, learning and using the tools learned. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there was a good chunk of time for me after that first relationship where it was like that switch was just off. Like I didn't feel attractive. I didn't feel sexy. I was a million miles away from wanting to date or be intimate. I just felt dead inside. I don't know. It was awful. And I had this kind of weird like body dysmorphia thing going on at the time too. Even though it's not even like it's not even like that was a result of things that he said. It was just a weird thing that surfaced. I had this huge disconnect between like what I really looked like and like what I saw in the mirror and what I really looked like. And it just was a very strange time in my life. Like it took a while to get past that. And I had, I had a couple of guys that were interested, but it was just laughable. I was like, oh, no, you don't want to date me. Like, I am a hot mess. Like, I'm just going to do you the favor. Like and it has nothing to do with you. It's 100% to do with me. And I didn't even realize what I'd gone through at that time. I just knew that I wanted nothing. I just needed to bench myself. Like I just was a million miles away from that. So that's very, very normal. But like I was saying before, I strongly encourage you to start reclaiming that. Like don't let them steal that from you. Like your sexuality, your sense of like being feminine or being masculine or your sexual identity at all. Like really try to reclaim that and getting in tune with that on your own. If you can kind of see what I'm dancing around. Just getting comfortable with your body again. And that's good. Jay McLaughlin says, as a guy, the sexy woman might turn my head, but a good woman turns my heart. I agree. I think that's the benefit of maturity, right? Is the person, because we know now, you know what, looks are great, but they fade. And it's the core of who that person is. That's, oh my goodness, that's what makes or breaks your life. It's having those conversations with the person, and trusting them, and knowing that they're on your side and being there to support you. And um, all of that stuff is just like, it's so huge. There was a gal in my writer group who has this amazing husband, and she had recently quit her job. Anyways, so he had done this whole thing for her, like just so thoughtful of helping her to be a full-time writer, and had helped kind of bought a couple of things, and was just for her desk, and they're big Star Wars people. And I don't know, it was just real cute. Just the level of support there was like, yeah, that's that friendship. And that and it should ideally go both ways, right? Like both people should be supporting and appreciating each other for who they are. And that's just the stuff that lasts. And that's a good point too. Big D says, isn't beauty in the eye of the beholder? Yes. Oh, absolutely. But I think I think when we can start looking at character and valuing a person's character just as much as we value like outer appearance, like that's when your life is going to work, is valuing who a person really is, not who they say they are, not who they, the outward appearance. Because people can say all kinds of stuff, as Jay can attest to, right? Like they can hide all kinds of behavior and say, oh, I'm a Christian, or I'm this, or I'm that. And it's like, you're just saying words. Like you're a million miles away from God. Like you're just, I don't even know what's going on over here, right? Like you're saying one thing, but you're doing another. And people can say all kinds of stuff, and they might look really, really good. But if they're bringing nothing but chaos and grief and strife into your life, then it's not worth it. So, well, thank you, Fallon. Fallon says, hi, Dana. I'm so thankful I found your channel. You have such an eloquent way of explaining these things. I find comfort in these live streams. Well, well, thank you. Sorry, I was reading Big D's comment. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm glad that you think I have an eloquent way of explaining these things, because half the time I feel like I am not making much sense at all. So I'm glad that I am. I'm very glad to hear that. And Big D's comment that made me laugh says, I feel like someone's character affects how they look. Like my neighbor who is a narcissist looks like a reptile. Yeah. Oh boy. And Celeste says, yeah, that's my mom bringing chaos. LOL. Yeah, we can just limit the amount of toxicity and chaos in our life. And whatever that might mean for you, it might mean just cutting down the amount of time you spend. It might mean kind of rearranging some things. It might mean going no contact. Like, I don't know. But you do. That's the good news. You do. You have all the answers within you. It's just sometimes getting out of our comfort zone and like acting on what we know we need to do. Yeah, that's so true. Arrow Mod says, can't love unless you love yourself. And there's so much truth in that, right? Like, but that's such a cliche where it's like, okay. But like, what does that mean? Right. But it really means like, if we don't have our own stuff figured out, if we don't know how to treat ourselves with value, it's going to be really hard for us to have kind of built up this healthy sense of self, for us to be able to love other people. So it's so important that we know how to love ourselves, that we treat ourselves with value and our energy and our emotions and our time and our body and our space and our finances and like every single thing around you that you're treating with value. It's going to be, we have so much to give at that point because we're not looking for anybody else to complete us or fix us or carry us to the finish line or any of that. You know, it's like, and not to say that we've got it all figured out, right? Like we're always going to have stuff that we're working on throughout life. That's just part of life. But we're able to hold our own, I guess is what I'm saying. And we're not looking for other people out of this place of trying to fill our vulnerabilities. It's like, I really like my life. Like I've got friends and hobbies and things that are going on and things are more in alignment. And it's, once you have a solid grip on like who you are and what's important to you, it's so much easier to then, it's like a beacon. Like you just turn on that, it's like a Batman, like that Batman spotlight, right? Like the bat light, like you just turn it on and it starts attracting many of your same people because you're very clear. Like you have that clarity about the things that are important to you. So you might be vegan or you might be like my brother, super into working out. Like he needs a gym rat girlfriend. Period, hands down. Like that's such a big part of his life that there's no way that he could ever date somebody that's not their whole life too. And that's cool. Like that's good that he knows that about himself, right? And that he's not trying to make a relationship that's not going to work. Like he really, that's a big thing for him. And it's, like my former in-laws were both, boy, did they marry the right people in each other. I have never met people that liked baseball so much in my whole life. Like I just thought people, I mean, when I go to a baseball game, I go there just to hang out, be outside and drink beer. Like I didn't know people actually, like that was a serious sport that people watched until I met them. And they were such a baseball obsessed family, but they married the right person in each other because they both were like obsessed about baseball. Like 24/7 baseball. Baseball, 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 baseball. And that's good. Like it's good that they found that because I mean, my goodness, I can't even imagine either one of them, not eating and breathing baseball. And if they'd married somebody else that didn't like that, like that would have never worked for them. So just these like little things that make you, really knowing that and realizing that's okay, like just a part of it. Jennifer, that's a great question. And I don't know I don't think there's a really right or wrong answer to this. It says, I'm trying to journal, but I only do it when I'm upset. Should I be doing it every day? And if so, what should I write about? There's lots of different approaches to journaling. So it just depends. Like I said, no right or wrong answer, just kind of whatever, whatever you really want to do with it. There's an exercise if you are getting a benefit out of journaling, and if you do want to start cultivating that habit of journaling every day, there's a practice called morning pages. And basically where you ideally would handwrite, but if you want to type on a Word document, you could do that too. You would basically handwrite 3 pages a day, and it's just stream of consciousness. And it feels really funny when you first start doing this because it's legitimately a stream of consciousness. Like, I don't know why I'm doing this right now. I'm so tired. I really want a second cup of coffee. I shouldn't have coffee, but oh my goodness, that creamer is so delicious. It's, it's the almond joy creamer, so good. This is why the weight doesn't come off. Do you know what I mean? And it's just like the stream of consciousness. And then it's amazing when you just let your brain relax, the stuff that starts to surface. So then it might go and you might start, ideas come to you, answers come to you, all kinds of connections that you might not have made before. And then it's kind of cool. So when you're done for that day, if you have any aha moments that tend to surface during that writing, when I was doing this exercise, I used to be big into morning pages like years ago. I don't know why I stopped, but I did. Anyways, I would go back in the margins and just put a star next to the different aha moments I had. And so that was kind of a quick way. So like over time, I could flip through and be like, oh, okay, yeah. And that was just kind of fun. There's lots of different ways to journal. I still, I have the insight journal that I made. I have a 3-year version of it and a 1-year version of it. And if you're interested, you can find that on Amazon. You can just search for Dana Morningstar and you can see them. And every day has a different question. So these journals are designed, and these are the hardback version, just FYI. There's paperback and then there's hardback. These are the hardbacks on Amazon. But each day has different questions. So there's prompts. And there's lots of different types of journals out there that do that have like writing prompts in them. The journals that I made are designed to allow for or to encourage insight. So all of the questions are geared to help people get to know themselves. One of my things to do on my list is to make these questions into memes and then put them, or like quotable things, and put them somewhere on my website or on the internet someplace, or I'm not sure where. So people can either journal about it privately or they can share. And maybe I'll just make some short videos. I could do that. I don't know. What do you guys think about that? Is that weird? If I were to make these questions into like just mini videos on YouTube, they would seriously probably be like 10, 20 seconds long. So like for example, some of the questions are like, what is the last big change you made and how do you feel about it? What is the best movie you've seen this year or in general? And what about it resonated with you? How are you feeling right now and why? What is one way you could bring more peace into your life? What is a bad or a good habit you have and what purpose is this habit serving? In what ways have you been courageous lately and why? What was the last unhealthy situation you left and what made you realize you needed to leave? What are 2 traits in people that make you either comfortable or uncomfortable and why? In what 2 ways have you treated yourself with value today? What has been your favorite what has been your favorite way to spend your free time lately and why? What is one aspect of your character or personality that you like and why? So there's just a bunch of different questions in there. I don't know. I'll be curious to see. I can start making these memes into videos. I guess we could always try it, right? And if it's weird, then we can stop. I don't know. Trial and error. Okay, Cynthia is saying that she would love the short videos. And Jennifer says that she would too. Okay, so I could start doing that. And then you guys obviously do not have to comment in the comment section your answers unless you want to. But you could always take the question and then do your own journaling in whatever shape or form you wanted to, if you wanted to even use those questions. Okay. Abuse Free says, hi, Dana. I tried to get your journal once, but I could not find a soft copy. I live out of the US. Can you point out how to find a soft copy? I think you should be able to find one on like Barnes and Noble or if you go to thriveafterabuse.com and you go to books, or I think it's books. There's like a drop down menu for different sites. We'll see. Where in the world are you? Oh, that's a good idea, Tyler. Tyler says maybe you could make a playlist featuring those questions. That is a really, I'd like that. I think I like that a lot. Okay, you're in India. You should be able to find it on Amazon India. Let me go over to Amazon India and see real quick here, because now I'm curious. How weird. Yeah, you're right. It's only hardcover in Amazon India. I wonder why that is. How strange. Let me look into that and see what I can do. I have no idea why that is the case. Let's see. What do you guys think about Tyler's idea of making a playlist featuring? I don't know if I could do all of them because that would be like super long. I guess I could. I don't know. What do you guys think? Should I do a playlist or should I do individual videos or should I do both? I could always do both. It's fun, right? Cynthia says, she says, I love someone asking questions and then to air that with a lot of people sharing would be great. It's super interesting. I think the funnest part of that is to see the responses from other people. And it works on a couple of different levels. Like, I think it helps people to not feel so alone. And at the same time, it's amazing that just what we can like learn about other people and then also about just aha moments that they've had and insights that they've had. And just it all starts coming together, right? Like it just, I think, helps catapult a person's growth. It's huge. Let's see, what are... Oh, that's interesting, Arrow Mod. It says, he says, I've got another idea. An alternative to writing a journal is a thought bush. Is this like a mind map? Start with a statement, then circle it, then write a short answer and circle that, then write a short retort and circle that, and then connect them like nodes. Huh. I'm gonna look that up. I've never heard of this before, and I think it's a different concept than what I'm thinking it is. Okay. I like that. And Jennifer says, yes, you could do a playlist or series or something. Yeah, I think Tyler's on to something there. Richard says, wow, there should be more live support channels. You never know what you're going to get during a live stream. I will say that I think it's pretty cool. Like the chat is fun. It's fun to just, I don't know, to see what other people have got going on. And I don't know, to be a part of the conversation, I think is its own level of entertaining. But yeah, you never know. Okay, let's see. Well, thanks, Grace. Grace says, those are some really great questions, Dana. Well, thank you. I really spent I mean, you would not think you would think like writing some questions, how difficult would that be, right? Like, I agonized over some of these questions. I combed through them so many times trying to really get some good ones, to get people thinking, and to kind of turn inward. It's a walking that tightrope without I don't know, kicking up too much uncomfortable stuff for people. Let's see here. Jennifer says, maybe we could make a YouTube series with them. Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to chew on that and see how that would work. Jennifer says, her therapist wants her to start reading a book she's suggested, but I'm always bad with reading a full book until the end, no matter how interesting they are. What, do you mind me asking what book it is? It might be something that we could add to the book club list. I think we still have like quite a few open spots for the rest of this year. You are so welcome, Malta. She says, thank you for the live stream. We can always add that to the list. If that sounds like an appropriate book for everything that we're doing. It's called Stop Caretaking the Borderline or Narcissist. Let me add that. You know what? I might have even bought that book, and it might be sitting in my Kindle library because that title sounds very familiar. Let me check the book club calendar and see what we've got going on. If you want, if that's not weird, if that doesn't make you feel uncomfortable. Oh, there's another book. Okay. And then How to End the Drama and Get On with Life. How to End Drama and Get On with. Yeah, those both sound really good, actually. Okay, Jennifer's cool with that. Okay, good. I didn't want to put you on the spot. So, but I inadvertently did. So I apologize for that. Oh, that's just the one book. That's the subtitle. Okay. I will make a note. Okay. Yeah, I will check it out, and then I will have an answer for you by next week. Okay, so we are at the point in the live stream where we do our guided meditation, getting reconnected, grounded to ourself kind of thing. So if you're new here, this might seem kind of strange, but it's just a thing that we do every single Wednesday. And it's just basically, it's your time to just unwind and relax and breathe and just let all of the stress and the negativity and anything that you've been carrying around for however long, to just let that stuff go and just be present and be in the moment and get grounded within yourself. So with that said, find a spot that's comfortable. If you're driving, might be a good idea to pull over. If you're laying in bed, just get comfortable. If you're sitting in a chair, just take some time to get comfortable. This will go for about 10 or 15 minutes. And again, this is just your time. So let's do 4 breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth. With each breath in, allowing it to go deeper down into the base of your lungs. Inhaling all of that restorative oxygen, healing, cleansing breaths. And exhaling any stress, anxiety, tension, just letting all of that go, being fully present in this moment. And now bringing your awareness to the top of your head, slowly relaxing every single muscle group, relaxing your forehead, your eyebrows, your eyes. Noticing if you normally kind of tend to keep some tension in your forehead or in your eyes. Just allowing that to relax, allowing your eyes to just grow heavy, relaxing your cheeks, your mouth, your jaw, letting your tongue fall from the roof of your mouth. As you just allow your whole face to just relax. Relaxing your neck and your shoulders. Allowing your shoulders to fall back and your chest to open. Relaxing your arms, your lower arms and your hands. Allowing your arms and your hands to fall into whatever position is the most comfortable for you. Feeling them grow heavy with each inhale and exhale. Relaxing your chest and your stomach. Relaxing your hips and allowing your legs to fall into whatever position is the most comfortable for you. Relaxing your legs, your thighs, your calves, your feet. Allowing your feet to fall into whatever position is the most comfortable. Feeling what it feels like to have your body completely relaxed. Noticing if you're still holding any tension anywhere in your body. Let's do a series of 7 breaths now. each one in, sending that healing, restorative oxygen to those areas that feel tense. And then exhaling all of that tension out of those spaces. Now taking some time to just be fully present in your body. Just acknowledging that you know when something feels nourishing for you. You know when something feels toxic for you. You're doing a great job, that you've come a long way with sorting so much of this out, that you are worth having boundaries for, that your wants and your needs and your thoughts and your feelings matter just as much as anyone else's, that you matter, that you are worth treating yourself with value, treating your time and energy and emotions with value, and that there is a lot that is right about you. There is a lot of things that make you you, and that's a good thing. It would be a very boring place if we were all the exact same. That your individuality is a good thing. It's what makes you you. You've come a long way. You're doing a great job. You are on the journey towards reconnecting with yourself and towards healing, towards moving into what's nourishing for you. Let's take a moment to just spend some time kind of visualizing, reconnecting to everything that is good and right in this world. Reconnecting everything that is good and right within you to everything that is good and right in the world. Let's do that for the next 7 breaths. You also right now, might want to take some time, if you so choose, to start listing off some things that you're grateful for as you connect to everything that is good and right in the world. There is so much that is right with your life. So oftentimes, pain and trauma can make us so focused on all of the hurt that we can so easily forget that. We can minimize that there is still so much to be grateful for. And this doesn't mean that what happened to us is somehow minimized or invalidated or not important. It just means that we can still have gratitude even when we're hurting. These things can exist at the same time. So let's take some time now to be here, to be grateful, and to connect that all is everything good and right. When you're ready, come on back and visualize giving yourself or your inner child a big hug, just acknowledging that you are a warrior. You've been through a lot and you've come out on the other side. And that you are worthy of love. You are worthy of having a good life. When you're ready, come on back, open your eyes. Okay, guys, thank you so much for being here. And if you were new here, thanks for joining us. This is something that we do every Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I hope to see you back. And I hope everybody has a fantastic week. If you have any other ideas for the questions, that if we're going to put them in a video, or how you think we should do that, let me know and we'll go from there. So as always, have a fantastic week. You are not alone. You are not crazy, and you really can move forward and heal from this. So just lots of love to you guys. Take care. I'll see you later. Good night.